Hey everybody, welcome to SuperQuest Saga, the show where we here at the Dungeon Cast sit around the table and force choke each other. My name is Will Stark, and I will be your sensible dungeon master for this evening. And joining me as always is
Josh Freeland playing Sebastian Crenshaw, half-orc paladin.
I am your special guest, Jake, playing Persephone Goldpetal, the druid furball.
My name's Brian, and I'll be playing human warlock Carter Huttenberg. I'm level 4. No, I'm not. I'm level 6.
Yeah, you guys have leveled up, and we're gonna talk about that later.
Wait, no, this is a space between arcs.
It is. This is Interlude 2.
We call it in the business story lube.
Oh, story lube. Oh my god,
I fucking love it. Okay, so last episode, a lot of crazy shit happened. Jesus. Like the elves attacked, you guys got away. There was a dragon. Sebastian lost an arm.
Smash cut. My God, man. Where did it even go? You were gone for like a second. Smash cut back.
So now it's been a week. Ooh. And you guys find yourself, along with Prim and Victoria, sitting in a booth of a rundown restaurant on a small way station in the outer rim of the galaxy. The way station is named Blue Eden, likely named for the Cerulean nebula it orbits nearby, and which can be seen outside the window of your booth. It's actually a really gorgeous sight.
So it is kind of like the end of Empire Strikes Back.
What?
You know where that iconic scene where they're like all standing in front of that window, in front of that like swirling vortex of galaxy
shit?
Yeah.
Well, this is a nebula. This isn't a swirling vortex of galaxy shit like you just said. Moving on. So the restaurant seems to be owned and run by a couple of green insectile humanoids with 4 arms each, and their heads are reminiscent of praying mantises. One of these aliens walks up to the booth with a pen and paper in 2 of their hands, while a third hand hands out water cups on a serving plate in their 4th hand. Welcome to Blue Eden Diner, the premier dining experience of Blue Eden. I'm Gladys, and I will be your server. What can I get for you? You guys have a menu, and there's only 6 items on the menu. The first 2 are beer and water. The next 4 are a Cranian beetle sashimi, Geekus fried noodle, chicken and egg soup, and arboreal salad.
What the fuck was her name? Glinda?
Gladys.
Gladys, lovely name. I'll have the fried noodles, please.
One fried noodle. She writes it down.
Can I have the sashimi, please, and a water?
Okay, sashimi and a water.
Thank
brought
you.
you water.
Well, she just brought you water, so you have water.
Then I'm solid. just the sashimi, please.
So sashimi, fried noodle.
Yeah.
Sebastian's looking at the menu to see if there's like more options. He's like,
there are.
I know he's not. He's just kind of like, can I just get meat? I mean, there's
Geekus in the fried noodle.
Sure, that sounds good. I don't know. Do you guys? I don't know.
I don't know what any of
He
this
just puts
is,
down the menu.
no.
He's like, sure, I'll take 2 of those.
Okay, 2. So 2, 1. That's 3,
swear,
and
you
then
stick
1
out like
other
sore
thing.
thumbs.
I know. Prim says, "I'll take a soup, please." She goes, "Okay," and then Victoria's all, "Just give me 3 beers."
Yeah.
Oh, I'll take one of those too, please.
4 beers it is. Okay, so
On second thought, I'll have a beer.
Okay, 5 beers. So she takes an order.
Could I have a beer, please? Just make that 6. Just 6.
6 beers.
6 total. Gladys, you're a doll. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Love it.
And so she.
I'm sorry. Could I have extra napkins?
She walks
please?
away at this point.
Can I get some side ranch?
She says, "I got
Some wasabi, please.
I got 1 hopper and 3 fried doorstops, 1 wet mystery."
This is straight some Emperor's New Groove shit.
I love it.
And you hear a voice from behind. "Got it."
She just say wet mystery?
She did. I don't know what that is.
Cool. Was that mine or wait?
Is that
Maybe
scared.
the soup.
maybe the?
Oh,
yeah.
there you go. That's right. Some Prim got soup, huh?
What was the?
So
what was the rating
she
of
comes
this
back
restaurant?
with all 6 of your beers pretty quickly.
Hey.
Hands them out. Victoria cracks one open. She immediately just guzzles a full beer down.
I don't know why I didn't start drinking alcohol sooner. This is fantastic.
Alcohol is very nice.
It's nice. It's pretty good.
Fortunately, it hardly does anything to me anymore.
So there's a moment of silence, and Victoria begins to speak unprompted. "I was born a Mechanus."
Oh, just right in. Oh, cool.
And she's not even looking at you guys.
Yeah,
We're all just so uncomfortable.
It's like, oh shit.
I paused like
staring out the
mid-drink.
window.
Like, fuck.
Like, everybody knows we don't do this.
That's hilarious. I was born a Mechanus, primary world of the Cyber Federation. I've lived most of my life under Dwarven rule. I grew up in the streets of Craghammer, a slum neighborhood in the capital city. I know none of you probably know this, so I'll just fill you in. The Cyber Federation is built on a fairly rigid caste system. On top, you have the Throom caste, which is made up of an elite aristocracy of highborn dwarves. Below them is the Rak caste, essentially a middle-class society of dwarves. Some are wealthy and influential, but others are much closer to the poverty line than any of them would admit. All have more rights and privileges afforded to them than any of the castes below them, though. There are 2 other castes that aren't important to the story that I'm about to tell all of you, but since we're on the subject, there's the Ord caste, which is made up of the numerous known clans of the Federation, and the Cadril caste, made up of the largest population of Warforged in the galaxy. Mm-hmm. But then there are the casteless. Some call them the Lost caste, which is made up of everybody else. My mother raised me and my baby cousins on her own until I was about 10 years old. About that time, she became ill, and within a year, it was me taking care of her and my cousins. Both of Dag and Dirk were only 5 at the time. I wish I could say I did a good job of it, but begging and odd jobs in the ghettos of Mechanus isn't exactly a lucrative endeavor. We couldn't afford a doctor, and we could barely afford food. My mother was dead within 2 years. Somehow I managed to make it to the age of 16, and at that point I did the same thing every casteless does when they don't have a future or any options. I joined the military. They trained me up, they gave me a uniform, put a plasma rifle in my hands, and they assigned me a post on a base in bumfuck nowhere. The food sucked and the pay was shit. Half of that was going to my cousins back home. The watches were long and soul crushing. Honestly though, it was the most well off I'd ever been at that point, and I didn't complain. Then 2 years later, 2 years into my 8-year enlistment, the Third Goblin War broke out. There never was a good war or a bad peace, and the damn Throoms had no qualms sending the castles to die. I saw my fair share of action. Almost every friend I made was killed in action, so I stopped making friends and I started drinking. She takes a long draw from her beer at this point. The war was the first time I ever saw one of the damn pointy ears. Everyone knows the Cyber Federation answers to the Elven Empire, but they rarely collaborate so closely as they do during war. They were like nothing I'd ever seen before. They were tall, graceful, strong. They had faces that looked like they were carved from marble, and glowing eyes. I once saw a drunken dwarven officer challenge an elf soldier to an arm wrestling match. That officer wasn't just strong, he was dwarf strong, and that elven soldier snapped his forearm mid-match. I once witnessed their sorcerers create a cosmic storm that swallowed a goblin dreadnought whole. They terrified me. Most of the war was a blur until they stationed me at a lunar outpost on Rocknar 5 defending military supply lines. There was a lot less fighting, and that's where I met him, Asimov Starbrand. He was an Asimov, yeah. He was an engineer and mechanic that upkept various ships and vessels on base. He was a dwarf from a fairly well-to-do rat caste clan. He was young and handsome for a dwarf, which is not a word I use lightly when describing dwarfs. He had a certain naivety to him that only the young and privileged can achieve. But he was also the smartest man I had ever met. Naturally, I completely despised him. To be fair, I despised all dwarves at that point in my life, and I had nothing personal against Asimov. I hardly even knew he existed, except as one of those nerdy science dwarves. Until I got myself into a bit of trouble due to my sharp tongue and a serious alcohol problem. I was out getting plastered at the local bar, and some slimeball dwarven officer decided to take advantage of the situation and come on to me. Normally, I know how to schmooze my way out of those situations diplomatically, but on this night, I was particularly drunk and particularly angry. I don't remember what exactly I called that officer, but I will never forget the look of absolute shock and embarrassed anger on his ruddy, bulbous face. He lifted his hand to strike me, and suddenly there was another person standing between us and facing him. The officer tried to push past him, but the new dwarf stopped him. Then the officer spit a slur into my face that I will not repeat here. The newer dwarf, who I recognized at this point as that Asimov fellow, threw out what I found out later to be the first punch of his life. It was a pretty good one. He broke that lecher's nose. Asimov may have been the smartest man I was yet to ever know, but in that moment, I was much smarter. I fled while everyone was distracted by the commotion. He didn't, and he got landed in 3 days of solitary confinement for striking an officer of the Throom caste. It took me a week before I decided I needed to thank him. I tried to just forget about it, but the thought of owing anything to a dwarf, even a simple thank you, was galling for me. I ended up finding him in a garage on the outskirts of town. He was covered in grease and oil, elbow deep into an engine of a private star cruiser that probably hadn't flown in 50 plus years. Before I could say a thing, he asked me if I knew my way around an engine. I told him I didn't. He asked me if I wanted to. Fast forward 2 weeks later, and we got that hunk of junk airborne. I never did end up thanking him like I had meant to. We became two peas in a pod after that. He taught me mechanics and completely bored me out of my mind with the higher sciences. I taught him how to fight and made him laugh with stories of my exploits and cleverness. I started to spend less and less nights out drinking and more nights stargazing and talking with Asimov. It ended up we both had resentment for the Federation and the caste system that exploited and oppressed its people. He told me the story of his life and how he had forgone his family fortune and his family name by joining the military, disowned by his overbearing father. I told him the story of my mother and my life in Craghammer. That was the first time I'd ever told anyone that story. I don't know at what point I had fallen in love with Asimov, but I remember the moment that I realized that I was. I woke up one morning and had an epiphany that not only would I rather spend my time with him than go report to my watch, but that I rather spend time with him than do any other thing in the universe that I could think of. I realized that just the thought of never seeing Asimov again made me wholly terrified, and I realized that I needed to tell him how I felt. So I did. That night after my watch, I sprinted to his housing unit. I pounded on his door till he woke up, and I told him that I loved him and that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. He got down on one knee and asked for my hand in marriage. I said yes. And in that moment, we both agreed that we had a huge problem. You see, dwarves marrying outside of arranged marriages is unorthodox. Dwarves marrying outside their caste is extraordinarily rare and almost borderline taboo. A dwarf marrying a casteless is absolutely forbidden. To do so was to risk imprisonment for him and worse for me. So we deserted. We had no long-distance transportation of our own, so we bartered a passage onto a religious missionary vessel passing through. The Cyber Federation doesn't have an official stance on religion, and they allow missionary groups to preach to the troops in exchange for a little bit of money, and that they provide some form of entertainment for the bored soldiers. The Faithful of Unity was thankful. Well, no, excuse me. The Faithful of Unity, thankfully, was intensely empathetic to our situation. Honestly, we couldn't have made up a better story than the truth for them. It had everything they loved. Two individuals oppressed by an atheistic regime, breaking down the barriers of caste and race and uniting despite all outside resistance through love. They ate that shit up. As soon as we made the first hyper jump, the Faithful officiated our marriage, and they took us as far from the Imperial and Federation influence as they could. We ended up in the Draconic Star Sovereignty. Along the way, I had picked up the religious bug, partially because I was thankful to the Faithful, and partially because their teachings resonated with me. She starts flicking her medallion at this point. I'm going to fast forward the story here. We got on our feet. We started a business. We hired people to extract my cousins off Mechanus. We built a ship, and we named it after my mother. Those were the happiest years of my life. But in our happiness, we were careless. I don't know what mistake we made to tip off our identities, but regardless, both the Empire and Federation had enough information to identify us when a job took us near the border of Imperial space. We stopped at a way station, not unlike this one. We were intercepted as we exited the Brunhilde. Elven headhunters. They told us to drop our weapons and put our hands up. Asimov yelled a directive code at Artax, who immediately shielded me and started carrying me back on board. The headhunters opened fire. Asimov ordered Dag to start the ship. I saw 3 plasma bolts strike Asimov in the chest. He collapsed. I struggled free as Artax closed the door behind us. And as the Brunhilde lifted away, I watched through a window and witnessed an elf approach and stab my husband through the heart. At this point, the food comes. And
just cry.
Yeah.
I'm just straight bawling
frozen.
right now.
Sebastian's sitting there frozen with his hand on his beard, just like, shit.
The waitress moves away, and Victoria takes another long chug, and she goes, "So that's who I am." And then she just falls silent.
How do you... Oh my God, Vicky.
Damn, that sucks.
She just takes another swig of beer. She's not even looking at your ass.
Yeah,
You fucking
I'm so
asshole.
sorry,
Damn, that sucks.
Vicky. That's one of the saddest things I've ever heard. Now I know why you hated us so much when you saw us.
What?
Funny.
Just because she closed herself off. She didn't want to. She didn't want to open herself up
She
to
wanted to
us.
break down those walls.
There was a point where you asked her about her past, and she got really not happy
She
with
was
you.
like,
I
"Fuck
remember
you,
that.
dog. I don't know you."
Yeah, basically.
It's like it changed their interactions. That's right. It's all coming back. That's the reason Carter just like waits for somebody to start talking and then like takes his notebook out. Like, I can't ask you people shit. There's so many questions.
Man.
So yeah, you guys get your food in front of you. The Genghis fried noodle just looks like a stir fried noodle with some sort of like pork-like meat. It ain't pork, but it's
Hey,
meat.
close enough.
Carter's taking it out and putting it on Vass's plate.
The Ukrainian beetle sashimi is literally like raw beetle wrapped around like rice balls.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have any like teriyaki sauce or like a fuck, what's it, sriracha? Sriracha. Something of that fantasy sriracha.
Oh yeah, we're all stocked up on the sriracha. I'll go get you some.
Please.
That thing lasted a long time.
It did, yeah.
This episode brought to you by Sriracha.
Fantasy sriracha.
Fantasy sriracha.
Space Sriracha.
Space sriracha.
Okay, so yeah. So now there's another awkward moment of silence
Yeah.
as you guys are just kind of sitting there in the booth.
You know, I don't really know how to like segue into, like how do you? I'm sorry. Like how do you follow that? You know what I mean? Like what exactly is like?
It was funny as shit because it sounded like you were saying it in character.
I was.
Oh, okay,
I was definitely
fuck.
saying that in character.
Shit.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know. I guess you guys don't know too much about my past, but I was from a tribe of furbolgs. In our time, we're kind of like nomads, just kind of going from forest to forest, and when like our people are kind of rare in our time. People don't usually take well to us, so we try to stay pretty far into the mountains or pretty far into the forest so nobody sees us. But, that's not too easy when you kind of stick out like I do. Furbolgs usually, I mean, you saw those gardener things, peoples. They're like gray kind of.
Yeah.
And, I'm like white. I stick out a little bit.
Forget you're albino. Yeah, you do.
I am stark white, so it's a little bit hard for me to disguise myself, and that disguise things that I can do only last for an hour, and then, we're kind of screwed. So, so when I was younger, long story short, my parents, when they were packing up camp and leaving, they just kind of left me when I was, like 2 or 3.
They just straight abandoned your albino ass.
They just
God
left
damn,
me. Yeah,
dude.
yeah. They all packed up, and they, sat me behind a tree with some, like a bag and stuff, and just kind of, left.
Stay here, honey. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
Oh.
Generally, basically. Yeah.
Victoria reaches across the table to your beer, cracks it open, and then passes it to you.
Yeah, I'll take it and be like, "Cheers, hon," and then chug it.
To a hug you're gonna get right now, babe.
I'll cheers her and chug it and be like, so I was by myself a lot. Somehow I figured stuff out. Me being a furbolg, I could kind of talk to animals, so they kind of helped me every now and then. And if I was hurting for food or if I was hurting for shelter or something like that, I would talk to one of them, and they kind of helped raise me. So I'm not, I wasn't very acclimated to being around a lot of people. You guys are the closest thing I have ever had to a family, which is, nice.
Carter is like
Yeah.
he pulls a flask out somewhere. He's like, it says 4 emergencies on the side.
He's like, stage 5 clinger break. The glass.
Something stronger than beer here.
So you're literally raised by the forest.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
And that's kind of why I took the druid path that I did because I've always kind of been more animalistic than others, and it kind of made sense for me just to be that connected to nature and creatures. And then I met you guys, and we traveled through time, and, and all sorts of crazy shit has happened since then. But yeah, that's me. And I'll drink my beer.
Sebastian's gonna put his hand on Percy.
Yeah. It's cool. It's cool. I found you guys.
I'm sorry, Percy. That's rough.
It's all right.
Now you got us. We're
like
family.
Like Carter was saying, tragedy happens. What was that? Yeah.
Yeah, damn, that sucks.
Thanks, Carter. Yeah, that means a lot.
Indeed. Oh, man. Well,
All these super sad stories. Get ready for this good backstory.
my story pales in comparison. It just doesn't stand up to the both of yours. It's not tragic. Well, I guess it is. Now that I think about it, man, that shit was tough.
Into the grass.
He was like, takes another swig of his beer. Yeah, this shit's good. Yeah.
Good beer, yeah.
Yeah, we were growing up with my father, my mother. My dad didn't allow us to drink alcohol. Couldn't have spicy foods. Everything was just bland.
Have
It was like-
spicy food.
No, nothing.
Too much exposure.
It
didn't let you
was
just
just-
Spices were too worldly.
It was just like everything was bland. Like everything was nothing to mess with our senses or dull our senses. Everything we had to stay sharp at all times. My father was a human, dark complexion, dark hair. My mom, orc, green skin. I do have gray skin, but it's probably just the way that the skin tones between my father and my mother. I came out with green skin, or more of the grayish toned skin. Kind of an outcast of that. But with my father, he kept us inside. He kept us sheltered. Almost felt like prisoners most of the time. And man, my poor mother. What she had to go through was. She always wanted me to get out of there. She wanted us to leave some way, somehow. But we just couldn't. Couldn't go against my father. I never understood why. I just always felt like we could just run, just go, but we just never went. My mom would always tell me that her father was a chieftain and that we would be safe with her family. So I never understood why we couldn't just leave. But I think my mom was just afraid, scared of my father, just the power he had. My mom, she was just a strong, sweet person, rugged and beautiful. It's what we had to go through with my father was I can't even talk about it too much.
Victoria reaches across, cracks open your beer and hands it
and
to
I
you.
just chug it at this point. The discipline that we had to go through, well, more of myself than my mother. I have so many whip marks across my back for stuff I've done. Anytime I tried to speak Orcish, I was punished. My mom would teach me on the sly without my father knowing. So I picked up some words here and there, but for the most part, yeah, he made us push down the Orc heritage. And then one day, he caught me speaking Orc to my mother.
Oh no.
I can tell you one thing, that was not a good day. Have you guys ever had hold buckets of water out to your side, straight out to your side?
Ooh.
I don't think
Just
so.
straight out to your side. As soon as my arm started dropping, whipped it with a cane. I will give him this though. It did teach me how to be strong and the fight through pain. That's for damn sure.
Victoria is on her beer. She'll build up those shoulders.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Got that AC straight through the roof.
And then one day, when my father was out on a mission of some sort, didn't tell me too much about his missions. He just told me that one day I'd be a champion of Sargonis, his god, and that was supposed to be the god I'm supposed to follow, and I did follow. But while he was gone, 5 orcs showed up at our door, and my mom recognized them. And I couldn't understand exactly what they were saying. I only knew a little bit of orc. But I just knew that they said that they were looking for us for a long time, and they're glad they found us, and they're going to take us home. So we left. We just got the bare necessities. We just took off. We left.
Okay.
Oh wow.
I did not know this about you.
Out in the the wilderness for 2 full days, just traveling, learning about the orc heritage, learning about my mother, learning orc. My mom even gave me her dagger that she kept hidden as an orc dagger. And on it is engraved, "Our blood is our strength." Ooh. And something I've always kept with me, something I keep close to my heart. For her, probably about 2 days in, 2 wonderful days. I mean, this is the happiest I've ever been those days, traveling with them.
Two of them.
2 days.
Okay.
2, not many more than that. 2 great days.
Why?
Storm came in at nighttime, and we heard something in the distance coming. Oh no! Didn't know what it was.
Oh no!
Here comes the thunder.
Exactly.
Thunder down, bitch.
Part of the sky opened up, and a beam of light shot down, and beyond the trees, I saw my father
Jesus.
just light up.
Your dad was Thor, so that's cool and scary.
And all of a sudden, next thing I know, it was scary but beautiful at the same time. Just the way he moved, it was like music almost. He came running through the camp, just slicing his axe left and right. I just
Straight murdering bitches.
Jesus. It happened so fast. I don't know the details. I just know that within a couple minutes, he was the last one standing beyond those 5 orcs that had taken my mother and I away.
What?
In some way, somehow, during that whole exchange, my mother got pushed and she fell onto a spike on the ground off a tree, impaled her.
Oh, jeez.
Oh.
And I could see the life just leaving her. So I walk up to her, and he looks down his stump of his arm right now.
Oh gosh, yeah, I
And he's
forgot.
like-
Yeah, one arm.
And he's like,
one
and
arm.
with my
Sebastian.
right hand, I reached out and I touched her face.
Oh,
I was
no.
like, "Mom," and she just
We
looked
got
at
moms
me.
dying left and right. this
Yeah,
episode.
just like, Mom. And she just looked up to me. She's like, "You are special. Keep fighting to become who you're meant to be. I love you." And just at that moment, I saw the life just fade out. So I don't know if my father killed her or if it was just an accident. We did bury her, and we did go back. We left, my father and I. But to this day, I don't know if he's the cause of her death or if it was just an accident.
Oh man, I'm crying again.
I'm crying.
I'm weeping again, and I'm just gonna hug him. And
And
like,
for
oh
the-
my God, Sebastian.
And for the longest time, I didn't know what to do with my father. Seeing what he was capable of doing, the fear of life was I followed his rules to the T. No matter what he said, I did. He just starts chugging his beer.
Nice.
Ah.
I think at this point, like everyone realizes what's happening. Everyone just turns to look at Carter.
Oh, sorry, I missed.
Your turn.
Damn, that sucks.
Do you have a family member that's dead?
Carter's like,
Is that too crap? Is that too crap? Too soon?
Too
Too
straightforward.
all right, all right. All right. I grew up in a small town. My mother was a strict woman, sharp tongue, like
Can
a
I roll
knife.
insight on Carter real quick? I want to know if he's
Wait
telling
till the
truth.
story's
Okay.
over.
Excuse you.
First of all, how dare you?
My mother was a strict woman with a tongue sharp like a knife. My father was busy with his studies often, but he made time for me here and there and made sure that I studied as well. I've always been of the book and grew up as such. One day we came to some money from a deceased family member from across the pond, and we moved, and there you have it. All of a sudden, I was treated like a noble, like a very, very wealthy boy. Growing up, I went to private school. I researched history and arcana and became exactly the person they expected me to be. And one day when I was but a teenager in my 3rd year of upper class, I came home from my studies and my parents were gone. Disappeared, vanished. Nobody knew where they'd gone. Nobody had seen them leave the house. No one had any record of speaking with them. I filed a report with the police, and there was no one to be found. I used their inheritance to continue my way through school, got my degree, and went to serve the king. And that's when I met all of you.
Go ahead and roll insight.
Ooh, that's a good one. It's a 19.
It's really good.
It's not the whole truth.
Oh, okay.
It's a part of the truth.
I'm quite. I don't want to say that Sebastian would realize it's not the truth. He'd be just. It really. It probably would raise some questions. Interesting.
You're abandoned too, Carter.
That's hilarious.
Tears
We
welling
all
up
have
in my
dead
eyes.
parents.
Oh, what was the name of the city we're from? It's been so long.
Oh my God!
Oh, jeez.
Hold on, I got it in my notes back here.
Okay.
Castilian. That
Castilian.
Was it. Yeah,
That's
Castilian.
where. That's. Eventually, I moved to.
Shit, that was so long ago.
I moved to Castilian as a researcher, working under a nobleman, and I just basically delved myself into study. That's all I ever did. Studied magic, studied history. I had a wealth of books. I had a jar filled with taffy. I had liquor in my cabinets.
Taffy.
I fucking love Carter.
I was considered a sage in the town.
I feel like the legs are getting bigger.
Yeah, that one.
Okay, cool. Cool.
People came to me for help with knowledge and advice, but eventually they stopped coming, and I couldn't figure out why. I'd offer them food and drink when they were at my abode, but things change. I ended up taking contracts from the king, one of them being to research a magical signature, the likes of which had never been seen before in the land. And as I said, Miss Victoria, when we first met, those are the circumstances in which we've now fallen under your care.
I told you. I believed you.
For some reason, I thought you did. Yes.
You know those walls we talked. She had those walls.
She cracks open your beer and passes it back to you.
Beer doesn't really get the job done, but I'm going to need a little bit of pushing on the back end. So, cheers.
Cheers. So as you're taking your drink,
Is this the future? Do we know? It feels like the future. Anyway, just start drinking.
do we even
Carter,
know?
can I have
Can't
a sip?
figure it out.
I like that.
Can I have some
I
of
like
that flask? Can I have? Do you mind if I take a sip?
Oh, here
I need some of the hard shit.
I've got a
at this
spare.
point.
I just start passing out.
wow.
I just start
Nice.
passing out
Yeah.
flasks. Anybody else want one? I've got several.
I'll take one.
That screws it with his teeth because he's missing
Prim
an arm.
takes one. She takes a long draw, and she puts it back down on the table. She begins.
Ooh,
to
was
speak.
that the? Never mind.
Which one did you drink? Whoa, truth serum.
Some
strong shit.
crossbones on it?
She will now tell me everything. No, that's not.
Does she turn into a llama?
No, no. But she does begin to speak. Oh. When I first awoke,
I think we're all be like, what?
Yeah, book out.
when I
Carter
first,
has a recorder on his bracer.
Bracer jack.
sure, yeah.
She's like,
I can't touch mine.
You guys are ridiculous. When I first awoke, before I was sent to live with the Illithids, I lived in a research center run by Dr. Zahn and his scientific team. I didn't really have much of a childhood, but Dr. Zahn liked to teach me things and to tell me stories. There was one story he used to tell me fairly regularly when putting me to bed. Long, long ago, before the stars all had worlds of their own, there was one world, one land with one sky above it. And in this land, many kings and queens ruled over nations and peoples of this one land. Of these kings and queens, 9 were counted as the greatest among them. They created many wonders and they forged the greatest nations. It is said that even their very names rang with power, and that their descendants were part of sacred bloodlines that held a deep and secret power. Though these 9 were not united and at times even warred against one another, under their rule the peoples of this one land grew prosperous and bountiful. But nothing is eternal, and the 9 began to envision a world after their rule had ended. They feared a time may come when their subjects needed them, but they were no longer of this world. And so the 9 came together to forge a sacred treasure imbued with their power. They hid it away in a place only those of the sacred bloodlines and the secret knowledge could find it, so that in a time of great need, their power may be called on again. The 9 did eventually pass from life, and with their deaths they performed a final wonder. The 9 sang out to the heavens to beseech the stars, and the stars, moved by their power, created worlds of their own, many lands with many skies, for the peoples of one land and one sky, to find and to cultivate on their own. Dr. Zahn always told me that it was me who was meant to find the sacred treasure.
Dope.
It's a long bedtime story.
You were probably asleep by like the middle of it, right?
I heard it so many times I could recite it in my sleep.
You ever go looking?
I think that's what the illithids were trying to do. We did a lot of experiments, and they never seemed too pleased by the results. Eventually, their focus shifted to time distortion rather than space travel.
Did they say why? Do you happen to know what the purpose of that would be for?
I don't know, but I think it upset the elves.
It's upset me a little bit too, honestly. Maybe that has something to do
No
with what's
shit,
going on.
Victoria holds her hand out and grabs Prem by the hand. She goes, I want to help you, Prem. Whatever it is that you want to do, I want to help you.
I also want to help you, Prim.
Me too.
Me too.
And my axe.
And my axe. And so I guess we'll end this scene with the camera kind of panning from the table and out the window and kind of zooming slowly in on this beautiful blue nebula out in the outreaches of space. And more fucking elves show up. Psych. No, but it's just the kind of this calm, serene scene. And before we end today's session, you guys leveled up, and I want to talk about that. So why don't you guys tell the audience what level 6 versions of you look like?
So buff.
So buff.
Oh my god.
So strong.
Biceps, the likes of which you've never imagined. Triceps that could topple mountains.
I could topple
Up on a
mountains.
flex.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Sure.
So I mean, my main thing really is I get my extra attack now. So that's beautiful.
That's awesome. That's like stellar.
I'm so happy.
Deltoids that can crush a man.
I did get my aura of protection, which now anybody within 10 feet of me
It's gonna be a pain in my
gets
dick. I forgot paladins get that.
Your passive unique abilities.
Yeah, so now
paint our dungeon master right in the dick.
people who are familiar with paladins now, anybody within 10 feet of me will get a plus to their skill saving throws with my charisma mod, which is a +3.
Ooh.
So
Very
it's a
nice.
+3 on all
That's nice.
saving throws now.
Sick.
So
I could really use that.
I
Got some
still
names.
gonna suck on the dex saves, but
Yeah, well.
whatever. Yeah, that's cool. And then other than that, I get a couple more. I get 2 second level spell slots.
Oh, nice.
And I get I know 2 more spells, or 1 more spell. I was at 5, now I'm at 6.
Nice.
Hell
Yeah.
Oh, I get. I can wild shape into CR2 creatures now.
Which we'll have to come up with.
Yes, which is dope. My attacks when I'm wild shaped count as magical now.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
to
that's just
overcome-
in time,
Yeah,
quite
yeah,
literally. I was like, oh, they're level 6. I'm going to start throwing the big boys at them.
Yeah,
But
so to overcome
they're
those
ready for me, apparently.
resistances. And then I get level 3 spells too.
Nice.
So I'm going to be calling lightning and doing
Full
all
cast.
sorts of cool stuff. Yeah.
Very cool.
I like it.
Okay, so I at level 5, let's see, I got a new spell, which I will pick at some point. I now cast 3rd level spells, and I got a new invocation. So I think I'm taking Armor of Shadows. I know I'm taking Armor of Shadows. Things are getting dicey.
Indeed
and I
they
could
are.
really use, this is going to put a +2 on my AC from 12 to 14.
Yeah.
So yay. That's effectively an ability score increase. So
Yeah.
let's go. I had it at level 1 or 2 or whatever we were, and it just it wasn't as pertinent as it is now. And at level 6, I got my our proficiency bonus all went up to 3.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Yeah.
I thought it was 3 earlier. It wasn't.
Oh, well.
Not earlier, like in a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
I got at level 6. I got my otherworldly patron feature, which is this this entropic ward. So I can impose disadvantage on somebody, and on an attack roll, if they miss it, I get advantage on my next attack.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, so that's cool when I for using my very precious spell slots.
Right.
So let's see, and I got an additional spell there, so that's 2 new spells I need to pick. And yeah, that's Carter.
Nice.
I need to roll my HP.
Yeah, I
out.
was going to say, what's everyone's HP now?
Should I be rolling it?
57.
57.
I'm at 42.
42.
What am I, a D8?
You are a D8. Go ahead and
Okay,
roll.
here we go. 8.
Oh my god.
Here we go again, everybody.
You make up Racy with HP.
And 6, bro.
Oh, nice.
So you
Plus
get 20 more.
Plus your
HP.
con mod.
That's
both
plus
times.
6. So 8 and 6 plus 6. So 12. That's
that's
16.
20. That's
No, wait,
no.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
8,
20 HP extra, right? Is that right?
8 and 6 plus 6, that's 20.
Yeah.
So I'm at 57 HP.
Holy
Damn,
shit! You just keep
fucking-
keeping up with the goddamn paladin. You need to look in the toughness feat, my friend.
I know. I actually have thought about that.
Ooh, I'm so bad. I need it, guys.
And with
Yeah,
that,
that's true.
I think we're gonna call it a game. If you guys enjoy SuperQuest Saga and what we do here at the Dungeon Cast, please leave a like, a subscribe, and a comment below. Share the show with a friend, word of mouth, maybe on Twitter, maybe on Instagram, however you want. And with that, we will talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I was going
What
to
were
say
you
something
saying?
like semi-poetic.
Something about tragedy. You know, we're twinning
being
through all
in
our lives.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, here I go. Damn, that sucks.